What's up, everybody? This is Paul from Boosted Films, and today we're going to change the cabin air filter on this 2011 Infiniti G37S. And some quick notes about doing this job. This is kind of a typical cabin air filter located behind the glove box. So we're going to be removing the glove box. There are 7 total screws that are Phillips head screws that need to be removed. So you will need a Phillips head screwdriver, and I'd recommend having a couple different lengths of screwdrivers to try to make this job as easy as possible for you. And other than that, it's a pretty normal job. Some trim pieces make it a little bit tricky as well. So let's jump into it and get started on the passenger side of the vehicle. We're going to open up our passenger side door, and this side trim piece right here, we're going to have to remove that as well. So we're just going to open up our glove box, of course, and show you around a little bit what we're going to be removing. So that trim piece, again, is going to get removed on the right side. That one pops off pretty easy. And as we open the glove box here, of course, take anything out that was inside your glove box, so make everything a bit easier here. And then there are, again, these 6 screws. There's 4 right on top that you can see pretty easy, and then on the bottom right, and then on the bottom left, there are 2 screws, and then 1 in the middle we'll get to a little later. So here we go on this side panel. A little bit of force here, and it should just pop off. And we're just going to pull that side panel off and out of the way. Next, in the lower left-hand part, you're going to see that's the first screw. Then there's, again, the 4 on top. So we're just going to point out all the screws again so you know which ones you need to remove. So 4 on top, 1 on the lower left, 1 on the lower right. And then the most hidden one here is kind of right in the middle as we shine a light towards the back. You can see right where that notch is in that part of the glove box. Just above that to the left, you see that final screw that we're going to have to remove as well. So again, with our Phillips head screwdriver, we're going to start removing these screws. I will say it's a bit easier to remove the screws than it is to reinstall them. I was able to remove all of them with this same regular screwdriver, probably about 6 inches long or so. But if you do have different length screwdrivers, again, it might help make this whole job a little bit easier for you. And I won't make you watch me do all these in real time, so we'll speed things up a little bit, but show you, of course, that we are removing these other screws. And once we had the 6 screws out, that 7th screw, that if someone did this job before in your vehicle, maybe that 7th screw isn't even there if it's a bit trickier for them to get to, but we're going to remove that here now as we unscrew that final piece. And now the only thing holding your glove box in place is actually this trim piece towards the top of the glove box. Now, I pulled the bottom down a little bit here, and then what you should probably do then is focus mostly on that top trim piece. And you're going to want to pull that out gently. And if you can, maybe do a better job than I did. Try and hold that glove box up in place with one hand while utilizing the other hand to pull that trim piece out. Because once that trim piece kind of pops out, your glove box will pretty much fall down here. Be careful with that trim piece. Of course, you don't want to break it, but it should just pull out again with a little bit of force. And note that that trim piece is going to be important in the order of putting things back together as well. So here we go. Our glove box is down. A couple things just kind of popped out with this wiring that's a little bit shorter. So we're noting that these popped out. We're going to push those back in later when it comes time to lift this glove box up in place. But here we go. This white box here is our cabin air filter. And what's interesting right away that you can take note of is you can see it's darker up top. That's because the cabin filter is actually lifted up a little bit by this lid that we're going to pop free. So we just popped free, not the lid necessarily, but the cover. So you pop that cover free, it should pull out a little bit. And then you're going to have to pull it to the right. It kind of has these slots it slides into. So we're going to, again, basically bring it over to the right because of that little metal bar that's in front of it there too. That's also a piece you need to get around. And here we go. We can see this cabin air filter says Nissan on it. So I'm betting this is actually OEM filter. It hasn't been changed in like 10 years. So it's a good thing we're changing this cabin air filter. Again, it does touch on that metal bar on the left a little bit, but these are a little flexible. You should be able to just bend it around a little bit like I did here and pull it through. It's not the end of the world to bend this around a little bit to get it in and out. So that's it. This is our old cabin air filter. Good thing we are pulling it out, of course. Hopefully yours looks a little bit cleaner than this one does. But that's it. The airflow, note that it's dirty on top. That means the airflow direction comes from the top as well. So we're going to pay attention to that later when we reinstall this new one. And what I always like to do with new parts is just take a quick glance, compare it to the old one you removed, just to make sure it looks similar so you're not fighting some battle, right off the bat with the wrong part. So this one, we're just checking to make sure it's a similar width, height, depth, all that kind of stuff. I will say this one it seemed a little bit skinnier, not quite as tall, but I think it's going to work still just fine. Note the airflow direction. That's not necessarily the install direction, up or down kind of thing. It just denotes what way the airflow should pass through the filter. And again, typically on these, the airflow always comes from the top and goes down. And you can confirm that again by when you looked at the old filter, you could see that it was dirtiest on the top. So we just slide that one in, similar to the removal of the other one. We're going to squeeze it past that bar on the left side a little bit. And then it's going to drop in place. Again, noting that when this is actually in place, it's actually up like this. That's the way the cover is going to hold it in place. So if we take a look at the back of this cover, you see these prongs, and these are what basically ends up holding it up. So it requires two hands to kind of get this settled and started the way you want. But luckily, I'm showing here with my cell phone a better shot just so you can see what you got to do. But then I have a second camera on a tripod set up. So what we're going to do is cut to that one so I can actually show you, as you hold up with one hand, and then the two slots, you have to slide that cover in with the other hand. So you should be able to hold it up just enough to get that to slide in place. And you should see it pretty clearly that it slides into those notches in there on the left side. And then, of course, it's going to snap in place when you push the cover on. And you should hear it snap in just a little bit of force, and it should pop right in place. And there you go. You have successfully changed your cabin air filter. But, of course, we got to do the rest of putting this dash back together. And this can be a bit of the trickier part, honestly. This one took a little bit of time to do compared to some others I've done in the past. But again, as I mentioned earlier, these two pieces kind of popped out. So I had this set up on my legs as I was sitting in the passenger side, and I just pushed them back in place. And now make note of these four kind of protruding spots I'm pointing out here. And also on the bottom, if there's a separate piece, plastic piece that stayed connected on mine, and if yours might be the same way, but right here you can see how it fell out of place. You're going to lift that up and push that back in place. So watch for those bottom lower pieces too. There's one on each side. I didn't get the one on the right side shown as well, but you want to watch for those as well. So there's kind of 6 main points you want to look for when you're lifting this up in place. So you'll want to, of course, lift up your glove box like this, and just watch for those pieces and make sure they all slide in where they need to slide in. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time getting this back in place where it should be. So there are different ways to do this, of course, but one thing that kind of helped me a little bit is I put one of these top bolts in place, but it's honestly just a temporary hold. I put it in place just so it could hold it up and it could free up my other hand, because we're going to have to remove that top bolt later, because that top trim piece actually needs to be bolted in when you bolt in those top 4 bolts. But again, we'll come back to that in a little bit. So now that I got the top held in place, we're going to get these bottom screws started. The bottom left one here, I will say that was one of the trickier ones for me to get started. And now I'm going to show a trick for this middle one. What worked well for me is just applying a little bit of light pressure to the screwdriver, and then as you can see that kind of notch that's in this glove box, if I held it to the right of that glove box, it kind of let me get a bit more level on it in some way. So I just applied, again, gentle pressure to it, and I didn't want to force it too much, and just tried to get just enough pressure where it would get on the screw, and then I could bring it up over that notch and straighten it out and get it started. Basically what I'm saying here is that some of these, if you first start tightening them and they seem really hard to go when you first start screwing them on, it probably means it's misaligned a little bit, which really isn't the end of the world if you can get it going. But again, if you can, I would recommend just trying to hold it, a little bit of light pressure on it, trying to get it to start easily before you have to really crank on it. So here's that trim piece that I was mentioning. So once you have the 3 kind of bottom screws in, the one on the lower left, one on the lower right, and that middle piece, you don't need them tightened up yet. You probably don't want them fully tightened up yet, because this trim piece, you'll need a bit of a gap As you can see, as I'm showing here, this gap, you want enough of a gap where that trim piece is going to slide in. You can see the 4 markers on this trim piece where it's got the circles in it that it'll need to slide into. So you need that much thickness to get this trim piece in place. And another trick for this trim piece is was kind of watching the left side, the kind of pointy end of this trim piece. Watch for that. Make sure you kind of get that slid up in place. Once that corner slid up for me, the rest of it really kind of just fell into place. So it just kind of slid through, and once that was appropriate, in where it should be, then it kind of slid up and snapped in. So again, just be a little patient if you need to. Don't ever apply too much force. You don't want to break this piece, but hopefully this video reference here can give you an idea of what it looks like again when it's back in place. And you can see that it should just push up, pop in, and kind of clip in. And now these are the easy screws, of course, to get back in place. So you should be able to get all of those screws tightened up and ready to go. And then if you hadn't tightened up the other ones already, the other 3, make sure you tighten them up as well. And there you go. That's about it. I think I probably made it sound easier, maybe, than it really is when it comes to putting some of those screws back in. So hopefully that goes well for you. We can open up our glove box and close our glove box, make sure it works like it should before we put this final panel back on. Again, notice the 2 slots that I'm pointing out here. They're going to have to slide in. So watch for those when you slide it in place. And once you do get it slid in where it should be, you should just apply a little bit of force and push it in, and you should just hear it snap in place. And that's about it. You should be all set from there. Close your glove box, throw all your junk back in there like all of us do. We all keep a bunch of junk in our glove box, so just put everything back in there. So that was it. That was changing the cabin air filter on this 2011 Infiniti G37S. Again, I'm just a guy on YouTube documenting what I do, so go ahead and check the comment section in the comments down below in case I missed any steps, or if there's an easier way to do it. There's a lot of other smart people here on YouTube, so maybe they commented on a better way to do something. So I encourage you to check the comments section. And also, of course, if you do have an Infiniti and you did this job on your Infiniti, maybe it wasn't this exact model, or maybe it was a different year. If you did comment and let me know if this process was very similar or maybe even the exact same for your car, that'd be cool, just because it would kind of help out other people that might be looking into this job. Hopefully they can check the comments as well. Make sure that it works, for their vehicle too. But that is about it for this video, guys. So as always, this is Paul from Boosted Films saying thanks so much for watching.